I knew the passion I had for space, then I was willing to give my life to go to space and take the risk. And I knew there were millions of people like me who would do the same. And as long as we understood the risk and still we were willing to take that chance and build something and risk our lives to go to space, I think it was all right to make that choice. Exploration and expanding humans' footprint in the universe is important, and I truly believe that.
I'm super excited to have a dear friend, a colleague, an extraordinary CEO, entrepreneur, Anousheh Ansari. Anousheh made headlines around the world in 2006 when she participated in an 11-day space expedition and became the first female private space explorer, first astronaut from Iranian descent, first Muslim woman in space, and the fourth private space explorer. She was the benefactor of the $10 million Ansari XPrize for spaceflight and is currently the CEO of the XPrize Foundation, where she continues to lead our mission of creating incentive competitions to solve the world's grandest challenges. Before joining XPrize, Anousheh served as the CEO of an IoT company called Protea, and she was previously the CEO of Telecom Technologies. She serves on the World Economic Forum of Global Futures and has received multiple awards and honors that would take me an hour just to list. In 2010, she published her memoirs, My Dream of Stars, to share her life story and inspire young women around the world. An extraordinary friend and a co-venture to the stars and solving the world's grand challenges. Anousheh, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Peter, it's great to be here with you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So, question for you. It's September 18th, 2006. You're at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. It's about 8 a.m. You're 150 feet in the air, and you're sitting atop a 40-year-old piece of Soviet technology, on top of 670,000 pounds of explosives. Next to you are Mikhail Turin of Russia, your commander, and then Mike L.A., a mutual friend of ours, a U.S. astronaut, and you're about to fly to the space station. What is going through your mind?
It was a very interesting moment that I remember very clearly because we were sitting there, we finished all our checklist, and we were just listening to music, classical music in our headsets, something just like this. And I was thinking to myself, is this really happening? Am I really going to space? And then, this sense of gratitude, because I was just thinking like a flashback of my life, of all the dots that had to connect, all the people who I met, including you, that put me on the path that got me to be in that seat on top of that rocket. It was something that I could have never planned. And just thinking about how many things had to come together to make that happen. And I felt privileged, and a sense of gratitude was the most strongest feeling I had at that moment.
So 3, 2, 1, the engines ignite and Soyuz is lifting out of the Baikonur Cosmodrome. What did it feel like? I mean, how would you describe that moment?
Everything happens, at least in my head, happened faster than I thought. So, lots of shaking, and I'm strapped into my seat and just watching all the lights go green and red and green and red and making sure that they're going in the right sequence. So at that moment, I was very focused on making sure that there are no problems and everything's happening the way it's supposed to happen. And then, you're going very fast. You feel the G-forces increasing on your chest. And all of a sudden, the first stage is over and then everything stops. It's like you're going fast and you stop. And it's like a moment of silence. And then the second stage kicks in and you feel the kick and then you're going up again. But before that, also, we were in the dark because there was a nose cone over the capsule. And just before the second stage, that just when we launched, a few minutes after launch, when the nose cone goes off, it's a big explosion, and then there's light coming in, which was really special. But then, you go through the second stage, and I think it takes about maybe 12 to 13 minutes to be in microgravity. And then the first thing I saw, someone had dropped a pencil that we didn't know on the floor of the capsule. So I saw this, pencil sort of rise up and start floating in front of me, which made me giggle and start laughing. And then, other things that we were strapped, so I couldn't feel that I was moving up, but still, you feel that your weightlessness, and it was so special, and I felt like a kid. I was just giggling and
I was going to
laughing
ask
like
you,
a kid.
were you in those moments of the launch, sitting there between the launch in Baikonur and getting to 17,500 miles an hour, 12 minutes later, were you a kid or an engineer or scientist? What were you in those moments?
I was a kid. I
You were
was
a kid.
totally a kid.
Did
I
you feel ready? Did you feel like okay, I'm ready for this?
I did. I had trained almost 9 months in Star City and done a lot of sims and studied everything. And so I felt ready. We had done so many simulation that I wasn't worried about what would happen next. And frankly, that morning, I felt such a feeling of calm and peacefulness, because I felt that even if I die, I'm dying doing something that I wanted to do all my life. So, how many people get to do that? And so, I wasn't worried about the dangers or things going wrong. I was just focused on the experience that I will have. And that's why I was a kid, because I wanted to experience it fully with all of my heart. And I did. And it was fantastic.
So I'm going to take you back. You're in Tehran, yes, as a child?
Yes.
What were your first memories of space? When did you, and you and I share a very similar background in our childhood passions. Uh, you know, I remember mine, and I'm curious, do you remember yours? Do you remember when you sort of first said, I want to go to the stars?
For me, it was gradual, but constant, and that was this fascination with the night skies and the stars. So I would, summer nights we would sleep outside on the balcony because we didn't have air conditioning, and I would love those nights because I could sleep and just they would put these malaria nets over the bed, and I refused to have one because I wanted to look at the night skies, and just when I looked up at the stars, it was like this whole new world, this universe opened up to me, and I could, you know, create stories and worlds and places to go, things to do, aliens to meet. And it was fascinating to me. And this constant question in my head, that's what's up there? What's out there? How can I go there and figure it out? So it was that question that drew me to want to become an astronaut, wanting to go to space and sort of discovering what's out there.
And when did you first have the idea that that might be an option versus just, sort of sitting on the ground and appreciating it? Did anybody that you knew have that kind of a dream or a goal? I mean, is it possible for a young girl from Iran to have that kind of a dream?
Well, I loved sci-fi, and I read a lot of sci-fi stories, especially the Jules Verne was one of the authors that I read as a child, and so all those fascinating voyages that I would go on. So in my head, maybe it was my ignorance. I was like, yeah, of course I can go to space. And then I used to watch Star Trek, and I'm like, there will be a Starship Enterprise, and I can go to space with Starship Enterprise. So I didn't understand the complexity and the problems associated with it. So it sort of, made it simple in my head that yeah, of course I can go to space. That's not a problem. It's only when I became an adult and I came to US, I understood all the difficulties associated with it, and that it wasn't possible, and unless I figured out a way to join NASA or one of the government space agencies.
Everybody, I want to take a quick break from our episode, tell you about a health product that I love and that I use every day. In fact, I use it twice a day. It's called Seed Health. Now, your microbiome and gut health are one of the most important and modifiable parts of your health plan. Your gut microbiome is connected to your brain health, your cardiac health, your metabolic health. So the question is, what are you doing to optimize your gut? Let me take a second to tell you what I'm doing. Every day, I take 2 capsules of Seed's Daily Symbiotic. It's a 2-in-1 probiotic and prebiotic formulation that supports digestive health, gut health, skin health, heart health, and more. It contains 24 clinically studied and scientifically backed probiotic strains that are delivered in a patented capsule that actually protects it from the stomach acid and ensures that all of it reaches your colon alive with 100% survivability. Now, if you want to try Seed's Daily Symbiotic for yourself, you can get a 25% off your first month's supply by using the code Moonshots at checkout. Just go to seed.com/moonshots and enter the code Moonshots at checkout. That's seeds.com/moonshots and use the code Moonshots to get 25% off your first month of Seed's Daily Symbiotic. Trust me, your gut will thank you. All right, let's get back to our episode. Let's take it from there. What brought you to the States? And I want to take people through your entrepreneurial journey. You know, as women and entrepreneurs, men and women, look at what you've done. It's been extraordinary. Companies you've built and the journeys and fulfillments you've gone on. But talk about your family's transition from Iran to the U.S. and going to school and becoming an engineer, if you don't mind.
So I left Iran when I was about 16 years old. I was just about to start grade 12, and we left, and we had this rare opportunity where finally my mom's request to get a green card came true, and they had accepted our application after 12 years. So this is after the revolution. This is during the Iran-Iraq war. So that which went on for 8 years, but I was there for the first 5 years of that. So there was this opportunity, and I was excited but scared at the same time. I was a teenager. I had never left Iran before that trip, and so we left with a lot of anxiety and anticipation, and arrived here. And I was studying math and sciences in Iran, and ended up. Well, first I wanted to become an astrophysicist, and I got accepted to University of Virginia, and my mom convinced me that that's not a really great career choice because all I could do is become a professor, and that I didn't even speak English. I would be a good professor if I couldn't communicate well, and I should think of something else. And I was, at my core, I'm always a problem solver. I love solving puzzles. I'm curious. So engineering became my second choice, which was, in retrospect, really a good choice because it helped me get to my dream and going to space. So I became an electrical engineer, computer science. This is in late 1980s, early 1990s. So it was an area that was growing, changing, lots of job opportunities. And so I became an engineer and started working for a telecommunication company, MCI, a company that doesn't exist anymore.
Microwave Communications, Inc. Yeah.
Yes, and it's interesting because that opportunity to work for them, it was, and learning about their history, because their history is interesting. They disrupted telecom. They disrupted the whole, conglomeration of the big mobels and changed the face of, telecommunication by doing that, and the breakup of the bell companies. So that story was fascinating to me, and really interested me in how a small company can really disrupt big conglomerates. So that maybe had something to do with my entrepreneurial desires later on.
So were you, when you were being educated in Iran and in your family. What did your mom and dad do?
My father was head of sales for the only wine producing company in Iran. This is before the revolution. He
Uh huh.
lost his job after the
I see that.
revolution.
Yes.
So he was in sales. And my mom worked as an administrator in a university and also worked two jobs to make ends meet. And her second job was in a laboratory where they did blood tests and other things. So I remember I would go in because it was an evening shift she had. So I would go sit next to her and see her putting blood in different things and putting it in the centrifuge. And so that fascinated me also. It's like all these equipment around me that I didn't know what they were for.
And was there a mindset in your childhood that you could do anything? Was that something that you sort of created through your reading and watching?
Whether this was lucky or not, because my parents worked all the time, and I was sort of left alone to entertain myself and do things on my own. And I had a very big imagination in my head, so I could entertain myself with imagining things and making things up all the time. So I sort of didn't understand the limitations in our household. There was no issue with being a girl, and people telling me I couldn't do something because I was a girl, and I was left alone, so I thought I could do anything I wanted. I was practically being able to do anything I wanted in the house, so why not outside? I would get in trouble, not too much, but but mostly I remember I asked a lot of questions, and that drove my mom crazy. And they would just pass me along to someone else, like go ask your grandfather. I always had a curious mind, and so I think that sort of drove me to want to try different things and think that I can do anything. It wasn't until I became an adult and understood, and then after the revolution, frankly, and all the limitations that were put in place, against women, and especially women in science, like the fact that I wanted to study physics and math became an issue, and it's like your chances of getting into university will be very slim, and the chances of you finding a job in the field would be very slim. So it wasn't until later that I realized being a woman is putting me in a disadvantage, especially in Iran.
And perhaps now in the new world, it's an advantage, especially as a female entrepreneur. Um, let's fast forward. You meet your husband Hamid, his brother Amir, and the three of you become sort of an entrepreneurial team. Um, when did the first idea that you would start a company together come in? Because you built three companies with some tremendous success.
I can't claim that we had like a brilliant idea and all of a sudden it's like, let's go build it. It started slowly, and it started when we were very young. We were working for MCI, and they changed their headquarters from
This
Washington,
is this
D.C.
was Hamid, your husband, was
Yeah,
with you
Hamid
then.
and myself. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's where we met. Actually, my brother-in-law and I, Amir, we went to university together. And when I was a year ahead, so when I looked for internship the last year I was in school, he introduced me to the company my husband Hamid worked, which was MCI, and I started as an intern and then ended up getting hired there and working together. But the company moved headquarters to Texas. We didn't want to go to Texas. Ironically, we ended up there,
I
but
know.
we left, and we started our own consulting business first. We thought we'd try small and learn about what are some of the big companies are thinking about and trying to build. So we came from the advanced planning group of MCI, so we were always looking at what's next that we need to build for the company. So we felt that will be a good area for consulting, and frankly, it ended up being a good choice because we got sort of a view into what future the companies want to build, and then our first big entrepreneurial endeavor was to start building those products, those software products for them. and creating them, designing them, and then building them for them.
So this
So
is where telecom technologies comes in.
correct, and
Yeah.
we did this under the telecom technology umbrella, and we got to a point we saw an opportunity to leapfrog that, and instead of asking the companies what they want, to try to see what are the gaps, what they need instead of what they want. And that's when we started our first products and ended up building the first soft switch, which is a technology that enables voice over IP. And this is before Skype and any of the voice over IP software that we see right now, or applications. So it was way ahead of its time, but something that the companies, the telecom companies, were looking at in order to reduce costs of long distance, and internet was just starting to grow. So that's what we built, and that was a right choice because it ended up being a successful product and exit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to ask you the question, was there ever a twinkling in your eye during that time where you're building telecom technologies and you're playing in the telecom market? Like, if I can make it big here, this can be what I can use capital wise to get to space. Was that playing in the back of your mind?
Well, I can tell you exactly how it came about. So one morning, I was getting ready to go to work, and on CNN, they were showing Dennis Tito.
Aha.
And Dennis Tito was the
This is
first.
2000. This is 2001. Yes.
Before that, it was 1990, I think,
Oh well,
8 or 9.
when we first
Before he
contracted.
went.
Yeah, before
Yeah,
he went. Yeah.
before
This
he
is
went.
this was a company that I had started with Eric Anderson, and we were and Richard Garriott, and we had negotiated a deal with the Russians that we could sell seats to go to the space station, and Dennis was our first
Yeah.
customer. Yeah.
And back then, I didn't know you. I didn't know XPrize. I didn't know you. None of this. But I watched Dennis Tito because there was this controversy that we shouldn't let any commercial passengers to go to the space station. United States was against it. Dennis, through Space Adventure, had a contract with the Russians to go. So there was all this controversy playing. And the only thing I didn't care about the controversy. I'm like, wow, there is a way to buy a ticket to go to space. I just need money now, because I didn't have the money, of course. So it became actually a motivation to grow the company, grow it faster, and exit. Until then, it was work, and I was building a company. But that's when actually I thought about exit, because now I had a solution to go to space and I wanted to do it. So
Interesting. So uh, you're serving as CEO of Telecom Technologies, yes? I think Amir, your brother-in-law, is CTO, and Hamid's head of marketing. Hamid can sell anything to anybody. He's extraordinary in that regard, and Amir as well. The three of you, and the time from which you said, "Let's build a software IP switch, a soft switch," um, to the time the company exits, roughly how long?
I think 3.5 years, 4 years.
Yeah,
I mean, the idea came about 4 years, and it took 4 years to build it and actually productize it and have sales on it, because
yeah.
yeah, about 4 years.
And if I remember, the company was sold to Sonus Networks, I
Correct.
think, for somewhat over $1 billion.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where our story comes together. Now, it wasn't just a sale of the company; it was a asset sale of the company, right? They didn't pick up the employees; they just bought the contracts and the software, I think.
They did actually they acquired the entire company, but one thing that we negotiated was they didn't put restriction on the shares that we all the employees and we all got, except for some of our shares, but most of the employees were able to basically sell their shares and exit. So it was like an asset sale, because they could realize a cash value for the shares immediately, and they didn't have to wait.
Just to tell those listening where we intersect, I am at this point. It's 2001. Um, I am desperate. I had announced the XPrize under the Arch in St. Louis in May of 1996, 5 years earlier, and I pitched 150 executives, CEOs, billionaires, philanthropists around the world to say, please put up the $10 million. You don't have to actually pay it until someone flies to space. And by then, of course, it'll be worth it. And everyone's no, 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 no. And I remember where I was in my apartment on 3rd Street in Santa Monica, picking up a copy of Fortune Wealthiest 40 Women Under 40. And you were featured in that. And I was just flipping through the pages. And I remember reading a sentence in there that one of your dreams was to fly on a suborbital flight into space. And I must have read that sentence 3 times because I was like, no, 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 it cannot be true. Wait, suborbital and flying into space? And who is this woman? Uh, uh, and then I tracked you down. Do you remember the first communication from me at all?
Yes. So my assistant at that time, we were in Hawaii. We took some time off because we hadn't had a proper vacation for God knows how many years by then. So we're in Hawaii. We had taken 3 months off to go and relax. And my assistant called me because at that time, after the announcement, a lot of people were calling. Everyone had an idea, an investment, So she was screening all the calls. And then she called me and said, there's a person who's calling. They're very persistent. And they want to talk to you about going to space. And then she told me about you reaching out. And I'm like, I immediately I perked up and was like, yes, let's set up a meeting immediately. I want to know more. I think you were the first meeting we had when we got back to the States and to Dallas actually, and you came in with Byron.
Yes, I
And
brought an astronaut with me, so I have some
which
credibility.
sold me from just walking in with an astronaut and his pictures on an astronaut suit. I was sold.
Yeah, it was. I remember Byron and I flew down. You were in Plano, Texas, and we came in. Your Hamid's older brother, was there, and we're presenting and pitching to you, and we're like, I can't tell you how many hopes and prayers I was riding on this meeting because it was like, this has got to be her. This has got to be the person. And you didn't tell us yes right away. Do you remember that? You waited a few days.
I did. I mean, I was sold. I was totally so. I was trying to contain my excitement, but we do everything as a family, so we couldn't huddle in front of you. So we said we'll get back to you, and then we had a conversation later on, and I think I was the most enthusiastic, and I everyone else. Well, you really think this is great? I'm like, yes, we need to do this. This is it. And Amir was very supportive too because Amir shares this dream of
Yes, he
going to
does.
space with me. So between the two of us, we twisted arms and we got the okay.
Yeah, it was. Our offer was, listen, if you fund this $10 million purse, because we had been successful in bits and pieces. I used to go out and try and raise with Greg Marinak and and uh, Bob Weiss, $25,000 at a time. That was a huge success for us, and we were able to fund the operations of the prize. But getting the purse was insanely difficult, and we pitched you, and I think it was 2 days later, I got a call from Hamid, who did all the talking.
Yes. I would not have been able to negotiate well. He was the best negotiator.
Yes. And we called it the Ansari X Prize. Originally, before we were going to call it the Ansari Prize, but the X stuck around because it had taken us so long. And of course, that allowed us to turn X Prize into a platform versus a one-off prize. Fast forward, you start getting involved. We start visiting the teams out there. What are your memories of first going out to Scaled Composites and meeting Burt Rutan?
I love those visits because it made it real for me, and I could see people are actually building spaceships. It was incredible, and I remember meeting Bert, and he's a very unique individual,
That's for
and
sure.
yes, and he was showing us the sketch of some of the plans he had, and it looked nothing like rocket ships. It was a plane, and it was very different design, very different approach. And I was thinking to myself, well, would this actually make it up there? And I relied a lot on you and Greg, and you had visited and worked with a lot of the teams, and you felt that, he probably was one of the top running teams in the competition, and he was, I think, better funded than most other teams as well, through Paul Allen, of course. And so I was excited to see his design, and he didn't warm up to me at the beginning, so I felt a little bit ignored, but it was fine. I was there to learn, and it was a like a kid in a candy store. I was just taking in all the information he was willing to share with us, which he was very protective back then as well. Rightfully so. He didn't want his IP to by any chance be compromised, and wanted to make sure that protect its design. But he was very confident that he's going to win this prize. He's like, I'm going to win this prize.
And it was a great compliment when he unveiled Spaceship One, and he said that the rules had stood the test of time. Um, and so you and I went up there together, first on September the 29th for the first flight. Michael Melville's flying this flight. And do you remember the aerobatics that the
Yes.
vehicle had on that flight, that first
Yes.
flight?
Oh my God, my heart stopped. I
Yes,
mean, at first I didn't know what's going on. I was watching on the big jumbotron, and
yes.
you know the this corkscrew flight
Yes,
pattern.
yeah. So
The-
Mike had pulled the vehicle up so straight uh, into a flight regime it hadn't flown before, and it started to corkscrew. It started to roll on the long axis, and I don't remember how many rolls it did. I think it was like 27 rolls before he got into space, and then used the reaction control system to stabilize it.
and I was listening on the ground control, talking to him too, and they wanted him to abort, and he didn't. He's like, no, I can make it. And I'm like, my heart is stopping. It's like, it's okay. You can try again later.
One of the things I didn't feel, and I wonder if you did, when I was going out to raise the $10 million prize, one of the objections, there were three objections always. Can anyone really pull it off? Why isn't NASA doing this? And is someone going to die trying? And there was a sense of feeling of, are we incentivizing people to risk their lives and potentially die in the process? Did that ever hit you, that you're putting up the money might cause a team to build a technology that we couldn't turn away, but it wasn't safe and they would kill themselves?
Of course, I understood the risks, and felt the weight of it on me, but it wasn't something that would stop me, because I knew the passion I had for space. Then I was as willing to give my life to go to space and take the risk. And I knew there were millions of people like me who would do the same. And as long as we understood the risk, and still we were willing to take that chance and build something, and risk our lives to go to space, I think it was all right to make that choice. If we play it safe, we will never advance in anything. So I think it was an important step. And I don't know if you remember, the Challenger accident happened before
Yes, I do.
this flight. Yeah, and that was actually another wave of, negative sort of sentiment around our competition, and that, even NASA has accidents like this. What makes you guys, small teams, to think that you can go to space and you will definitely kill people? And I wrote an op-ed on this as well, and And I talked to a few astronauts and to see how they felt about this, and they all said that it's actually dishonoring the memory of those astronauts who gave their lives, because they're in this knowing that exploration and expanding humans' footprint in the universe is important. And they're willing to give their lives, and using their death as an excuse not to do it is actually dishonoring their memory. And I truly believe that.
I do as well. I mean, risk is the game that we enable to live, humanity at a higher level. I remember something that most people don't know is we set the rules for the Ansari X Prize. You had to build a 3-person spaceship. We figured as a pilot and 2 paying passengers, and you had to fly it to 100 kilometers altitude, land safely, and within 2 weeks make the trip again. You could replace up to 10% of the dry mass, um, uh, and it had to be 90% or more privately funded. So in Spaceship One, where Mike Melville was sitting up front at the controls, there were 2 empty seats in the back.
Yes.
uh,
I wanted one of those seats. I remember the day of the flight, I was telling Bert, I'm happy to replace one of those bags if you want. I'll go.
yes,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
nah, then you can't do that.
Yeah, we gave the option to the teams that instead of risking 3 lives, it was interesting. It was important to have a human in the pilot seat. It would not have been the same, would it, had we had an autopilot flying the vehicle, than Mike Melville on that flight. And in the back 2 seats, we had all kinds of memorabilia. Um, uh, I remember when I flew on there. Do you remember? Did you fly some things?
I didn't. I don't
Oh,
remember.
we'll have to go back in our time machine and
Yeah,
give
I
you an
know.
opportunity.
I
Now, I,
know.
I flew a copy of The Spirit of St. Louis, the book that Greg Marinac had given me that inspired the Ansari X Prize. I flew Atlas Shrugged. I'm a huge Ayn Rand fan. And then I flew The Man Who Sold the Moon by Robert Heinlein, which had inspired so much for me. And then we flew certificates that we used for fundraising with the X Prize, and bags of pennies that we gave out to people and so forth. They had to come up with I don't know, something like 400 pounds of ballast back there. So he flies on September 29th, and then the rules were you had to fly again within 2 weeks. So what does Bert do next?
Well, he definitely didn't want to wait 2 weeks, so he wanted to make a memory of the second flight. So I think it was October
October,
4th.
yes, which is another date in history, right? It's the anniversary of Sputnik,
Yes.
October 4th of 1957, where the Soviets beat the Americans to orbit a satellite in space.
Yeah, so he notified us that that's when his second flight will be, and we were scrambling to make sure we get ready to cover it and then be there and bring everyone else there. So it was an exciting 2 flights, both of them. I remember getting up very early and surprised by the line of cars in the darkness of the early morning, Mojave. All these cars and headlights. I'm like, oh my God, all these people are coming to watch the launch. This is important to a lot of people.
Yeah, we had, God, probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 large satellite trucks and 10,000 plus people. It was like a giant party in the middle of the desert. And it was insane. And what was crazy was, Mike Melville had flown that corkscrew flight 5 days earlier, and what Bert and the team, this was the genius of the group he had, was they figured if they just flied a more shallow flight profile, it would be stable. So they didn't have to modify the vehicle at all. So I don't know if you remember our Charles Lindbergh, who won the Ansari X Prize, an
Yes,
extraordinary pilot, Navy pilot. Remember who that was?
yes. Brian Binney.
Yeah, Brian, and flew a picture perfect flight. Um, and I remember Brian was told us that the morning these guys are getting up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning for their flight, and he had barely got any sleep the night before. And his mother-in-law steps up to him to give him a hug, and she's got a large, big gulp soda in her hand, and she's coming to wrap her hands around him. And he's thinking in the back of his mind, what is she going to do with that giant big gulp soda? Where's she going to put it? And she puts it down his flight suit. So he does the flight to space with all of this soda sticky on his back. And he does the calculations of like, extra 6 ounces of weight. How much less altitude is that going to be? Anyway, crazy, crazy. And that was an amazing, amazing day in history for us.
It
So,
was.
but it was just the beginning of your space adventures, Mademoiselle.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
so, uh, so let's take you back to the connection for the Cosmodrome. How did you get into cosmonaut training?
Okay, my entire life revolves around XPrize. So we were celebrating the first anniversary of winning of the competition, the Ansari XPrize, and we had a big party and invited who's who of space agencies, and Buzz Aldrin was there, and also, of course, all the XPrize family. And we had also invited Eric Anderson, and he brought the next person who was supposed to go to space. It was a Japanese businessman, and they were there. And Eric told me that that he doesn't have a backup, and I know how interested you are in space. Do you want to be a backup and just learn about the Russian space program and how it works? And because this was something on my list of I wanted to do, I
What
didn't know
what
how
year?
long.
What year is this roughly?
This is 2005.
So, and for a backup, you mean go to Russia and train in Star City?
Correct. And so my original plan was to go to space with Spaceship One, and then I knew that I have to wait until they get it commercialized and all that. So I didn't know how long that would take. And this opportunity came, and the only question I asked Gary is like, "Will I be in the same room as the other astronauts? Will I be training next to them?" And said, "Yeah, you'll be part of the whole crew. You'll be a backup crew." So I that was the only question I asked, and then I packed my bags, and then I was off to Russia to train for 9 months and
Okay,
be
I want you to
in the cold
describe.
weather.
I want you to describe the luxurious accommodations that is the Star City training facility. So, how would you describe it visually?
It's I don't think it has changed much since Gagarin flew to space. Let's
In
put it that way.
1961, yes.
Yes, and you and Hamid came with me for my qualification because they had to make sure I can enter the program. So you both came with me to Star City, and I remember there was this capsule, the old Soyuz capsule in the big hall that we entered. And you and I were sat inside, and Hamid poked his head in and is like, "You're really going to fly this thing to space?" I'm like, "Yes." It
Uh,
was so old, everything push button and old screen. Then the operating system was DOS, so it was
nice.
pretty old.
I remember everything was cement and asphalt, and the stairs were crumbling on the way up. It was definitely it was a 1 star.
Yeah, trip going back in
What?
time. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so you're going through training, and you're expecting that you're going to be in on the ground watching as the launch vehicle takes off for 11 days on space station. But uh, that that dream of standing on the ground and watching it was dashed, wasn't it?
Definitely. Fortunately. And it happened very quickly. So before that, if you remember, there was a launch. For the crew before us. And I got the opportunity to go watch the launch. And if I had any doubt in my mind that I wanted to go to space, my God, watching the Soyuz launch just made it that much stronger in my heart. I'm like, I'm going to do it. And started negotiating. It's like, so when is the first spot that I can sign up to go? And while I was thinking about that, finished the training. And the entire time I was training, I decided that I'm going to train as if I'm going to space because I
You're
wanted
giving it
to.
your all.
I was giving it my all, and I even designed my patch, which was very presumptuous of me. But like, eventually, I'm going to go to space, so I started designing my patch and everything. And then the training ended. I remember very clearly. The training ended. It was the last day. We finished our last sim, and Hamid was coming to help me pack to get ready to go home, and then the astronauts were going to quarantine to Baikonur. And on my way to the airport, I got a call from Eric, and it's like, Anousheh, do you want to go to?
Eric's the CEO of Space Adventures at this time.
Yes. Yeah. And Eric calls me, he's like, do you want to go to space? And I'm like, Eric, this is not funny. I, I'm
Don't
so
tease me.
depressed. Yeah, exactly. I'm so depressed right now. I was very depressed. So the last day, the best time I had in my life, and it's coming to an end. And he's like, no, I'm serious. The person who was supposed to go had a medical condition, and they had just disqualified him. And that they said that Anousheh has passed all the trainings. She's scored very high, and she's probably even more ready to go. And it's just a matter of if you want to go. And I screamed so loud, I think I blew his
How long? How many
eardrums.
days before flight is this?
So this was 3 weeks
3
before
weeks
the flight.
before. So you're
Yes.
ready to go back to Plano, Texas, and instead you turn
I
the
got to
car
Baikonur.
around and head
Yeah.
back there.
Yes. And my first call after, of course, Hamid was there, and as soon as I saw him, he's like, "Guess what?" It's like, "You're going to space." I'm like, "Yes, I'm going to space." So I got really, I didn't know what to do. I had only 3 weeks, so I couldn't prepare anything. And my first call was to you, Peter. It's like, Peter, I'm going to space. What can I do? What should I do? What experiments should I do? And I remember you told me is just write about your experience, write a blog. And I'm like, I don't know how to write blogs. It's like, just write whatever comes to your mind. And I said, okay. And you had to actually pull some strings and get permission for me to actually publish that blog for XPrize, through XPrize.
It was an extraordinary, and so how many days on the space station were you? So you launch. How long to get to the space station? How long you're there? Coming back down. Give people a flight profile because folks may not know what it's. It's like how quick you can hail your taxi and get to the space station and back.
So back then, it would take 2 days to get to the space station. So you spend 2 days inside the capsule, which is not the best part of the trip because the capsule is pretty small. I was with other two crewmates, and inside the capsule, you're sitting and your knees are to your chest, and it's very tight. And then you can get out of your seat once you're in orbit, but there's just a little bit more room for two people standing close together. And that's the space you have for 2 days together. And that's also the time when your body is going through a lot of changes. So I had motion sickness. I had like tremendous headache. My back hurt. The body's adjusting. So that was the hardest part of the trip, I would say. And then after 2 days, you get to the space station, and compared to the capsule, it's like a luxurious, castle with all the different modules. And I was really happy to get there and stayed 9 days on the space station and returned to Earth with a different crew who had just completed their 6 months.
Your favorite moment, like the favorite thing, like what do you when you close your eyes and you remember being there, what is it you remember?
There are two very special moments that I remember. Of course, the first one is when I saw Earth for the first time and I was still in the capsule. It was after we got to orbit, and they had just told us that we can open our seat belts. And I sort of slowly flew up, and I had the porthole next to me. So I flew up a little bit to the porthole, and I looked out, and it was daylight, and I could see Earth. And it was such an emotional moment for me. And I just, it was so beautiful. And it was like there was this energy and this warmth coming from Earth. And I was in the capsule, so it wasn't like I was actually feeling it, but it was there. I could feel it. And I started, laughing and at the same time crying. It was bizarre. And my teardrops started accumulating under my eyes, and then one of them started floating, and I saw my teardrop floating, and then that made me laugh again. So it was just back and forth, a really big, strong mix of emotions. And then after I got enough of watching our planet and then started getting dark as we turned, I decided I'm going to fly. I can do Superman now, and I pushed my feet down so hard that I flew so fast I hit my head to the top of the other module, and then I was somersaulting. All the things they told you not to do at the beginning of being in space, I was doing. I was a kid. I was a kid in a candy store. I was just experiencing all these sensations and feelings and sights, and of course I got very sick after that.
Did all the motion sickness eventually go away?
Yes, I had to get a shot. It got so bad, I had to have a shot, and that makes you drowsy. So one regret I have is the first 2 days inside the capsule, I was very drowsy because of the medication. But by the time we got to the space station, I was, adjusted. I was ready. I was excited. So my body went through all its changes before getting to the space station, which was the best part. I could just enjoy the experience out there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You come back down, and we begin our journey together on the XPrize. So you've been a trustee of the XPrize since your family stepped up to underwrite the first Ansari XPrize, and I've been a extraordinary uh, co-conspirator, I'll say, in this journey. Um, and we were lucky enough to pull you in as CEO. How many years ago now?
About 3 years ago, three
3
and a
years
half
ago.
years ago.
Okay. Like tell you, it's the first 3 years of your next 300 with together. I'll offer you all the longevity services on the planet as long as we keep you as our CEO. Anousheh, I want to talk a little bit about mindset, which I tend to focus on in this podcast, because I think it's what I like to say is that uh, what enables the most successful people on the planet is their mindset. It isn't the money they have. It isn't the technology they have. It's the way they process information and see the world. So let's kick off with a conversation around a passion and purpose-driven mindset, because I think you're someone who very much exudes passion and purpose. Uh, would what's your advice to people when they're saying, I'm not sure what I want to do, I'm not sure what my purpose is? Do you have any advice for folks to help them find their passion and their purpose?
Yeah, I think it's good if people leave some room for exploration and experiences. That's the only way you can find your passion. So, as I said, I have a very curious mind, so I love trying new things. And sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't like it. I think that's very essential to being able to find your purpose and your passion. And a lot of people are looking so hard that even if it's there, they miss it because they think it's formulaic and there's like they need to take a test to find out what their passion is. And it's not like that, because passion comes from an experience that leaves an emotional sort of footprint on you. And then you want to have it again, and you want to have it in a bigger way, or something that maybe it's an idea that you watch something. And I love sci-fi stuff, so I always got ideas from just watching what the future could be and then trying to make it happen. So I think curiosity and allowing yourself to experience different things and having an open mind to these new experiences is a big part of finding your passion. And risk taking is core to all of it, because if you want to play it safe, you will never try something new. And if you never try something new, how would you know if it's something you like or you're passionate about? So those are, I think, very important factors.
I love that. And it goes back to another mindset I focus on, which is a curiosity mindset, right? Which I think you exhibit in spades. Um, uh, is there, Do you think you were born with a curiosity mindset, or is that something you develop over time?
I think we all are born with curiosity mindset, but some start putting limits on it and sort of killing it. As kids, we're always curious. Every child is curious because they're just learning, and you can either develop it and let it grow, or you can sort of stifle it and kill it. And a lot of our systems, sometimes parents, sometimes society, plays a big role in really killing that sense of imagination and curiosity in young people. And that's one thing that if I have a chance to give advice is don't let that die in you, because that's the best gift we have as human beings, is this imaginative mind, that the curiosity that we have, allowing us to imagine things and then building it later. It starts with that whole concept, and it's very unique to human beings. I don't know any other species that we've studied enough that has this type of capability.
I love that, and that was part of your patch. What was your mission? What did your mission patch say?
Imagine, be the change, inspire. So I had these three things on top of my patch. So the first part was imagination, because without imagination, you don't go anywhere. You have to first see it, imagine it, and then do it. So the second part is the action part, be the change. So if you want something, don't wait for other people to do it for you. You have to do it. You have to make it happen. You have to create it. So it's part of the famous Gandhi quote of be the change you want to see in the world. So you have to manifest that yourself. And then the last part is, when you do the first two parts, inspire others to do the same. Because this world will be a much better place and more fun place to live in if everyone followed those steps.
Everybody, let me take a quick break from our episode to talk about something important for your diet. As you know, I'm a huge longevity and health champion. Part of my focus is on exercise, sleep, and diet. And when it comes to diet, I'm super careful on what I eat. But throughout the day, when I need energy, I'm looking for a snack. And one of my favorite options is macadamia nuts. And there are 4 reasons. I want to share them with you. First, macadamia nuts are high in monounsaturated fats, which are the good fats for your heart. It lowers LDL and raises your good cholesterol. Second, they taste great, and they're rich in fiber, which helps with digestion and gut health. Third, macadamia nuts contain antioxidants and flavonoids, which protect your cells from damage and inflammation. And finally, macadamia nuts have a low glycemic index, which means they don't spike your blood sugar. They truly are the king of nuts. I get mine from House of Macadamia, which offers the best macadamia nuts in the world. They're sourced sustainably from South Africa. They offer a huge range of delicious, nutritious products, including roasted and dipped macadamia nuts, macadamia nut bars, macadamia oils, which are actually better than olive oil for cooking. If you want to try House of Macadamia products for yourself, you can get 20% off your first order by using the code PETER20 at checkout. Just go to houseofmacadamias.com/PETER20 and enter the code PETER20 at checkout. That's houseofmacadamias.com/PETER20. And then again, use the code PETER20 to get that 20% off. Trust me, you'll love them as much as I do. Now back to our episode. One of the things that I love is the fact that the XPrize has a significant number of women in leadership positions. And I've often said, it's time to give women, men have screwed up enough. Let's hand it over. What's your advice to women out there who are, interested in non-traditional, what has been historically non-traditional female careers, and or want to be entrepreneurs and leaders? What do you say to all of them?
So I think this whole concept, the podcast about mindset, and I think mindset plays a huge role, whether you're male or female. But in women, I think a lot of times we limit, our limiting belief system is what limits us. We're scared to try big things. And part of it, I think, has to do with the fact, and again, I grew up in a different culture, but girls are always told to be perfect by their parents, especially their moms usually. It's like you have to look perfect, dress perfect, your hair has to be perfect, everything has to be perfect. And when you're trying to be perfect, you don't try things that you may fail at. I remember my grandmother used to discourage me from playing in games where I had to run and I could fall down. It's like, you're going to have a scar on your skin. And if you want to ever be in a beauty pageant, you can be in a beauty pageant. I'm like, who wants to be in a beauty pageant? I want to run. I want to climb. I want to go up the tree. So I think those types of things as a child puts a sort of this limiting belief system that there are certain things a perfect girl cannot do, and I think we need to get rid of that and you know, try everything and not be afraid of failing. So anyone who wants to try something worthwhile, they need to prepare themselves for failure. And to me, I even don't like the word failure, because to me, anything you want to do that's new, you're going to make mistakes and things won't work the way you thought. So to me, they're lessons, they're not failures. And you just need to understand what went wrong, so next time you don't make the same mistake or make adjustment to do it better. So I think those things are very important in women who want to be in leadership position. I also especially I want a lot of women in the STEM and tech oriented businesses, because I think our society will be run by technology, and the fact that the voices of women leaders are missing in at the design tables, at the discussion tables. The world is being built in a way that it won't be women friendly. So I think it's important for women to be at the discussion table, at the design table, at the leadership role, to do that. And the last thing I would say is, and this is true for me, when I did things, I didn't think about being a female engineer or a female CEO or a female this or female that. I was me. I was a human being. I was doing things the way I believe should be done, the way I would if I switch places. My leadership has always been that if I were the employee, what would I want to see? And I would try to do that. Or when I worked for someone else, what things worked and what things bothered me. So I never went to business school. I don't have a MBA. So everything I did was from intuition and just doing the things I liked in other leaders and not doing the things I didn't like in other leaders. So it's something that I recommend for women. And when you look for mentors, I don't think you just need to limit yourself to female mentors. I think female mentors can understand some of the challenges that women leaders face, but you can always learn lessons from anyone. And I would actually like that diversity of experiences when you're trying to tackle a problem that's facing you.
I love that. I love that. Let's talk moonshots. That's our business in XPrize. And you know, is this is the idea of going big and or going home something that was inherent in your mind as an entrepreneur? Did you gravitate to this idea of going after the world's biggest problems? I mean, I don't think that's for everybody, right? I think some people just like to stick in their knitting and do the 10% incremental work. And other people are like, unless I'm changing the world, I'm not interested. Is that, do you agree with that, or what's your experience here?
I agree. And so here's the way I look at it. Being an entrepreneur, starting something new, is very risky. It requires a lot of sacrifice. It's hard. I think sometimes people make it sound like it's always fun and games and parties, and you get to be your own boss, so you can sleep as late as you want. Is the farthest from the truth. It's hard. You have to be all in if you want to succeed. You have to be dedicated, passionate, and you need to be ready for a lot of failures and adjusting and getting up, and taking the next step. So if you're doing all of that, it's not worth it for a 10% increment. If you want to do that, go work for a company. And that's what they do. Large companies, they do incremental change. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to take big leaps and make sure that your time and energy and the sacrifice you make from your personal life, which you have to make, is worth it. So that would be what I would do. And that's why a lot of things, projects, or products that we built was way ahead of its time. So we were changing something.
To stick on the focus on women leaders and entrepreneurs, I have to imagine it's difficult to have a trade against family, a trade against kids, a trade against how you spend your time. What do you tell young women in their 20s and 30s who are going all in on this?
Well, that's exactly the sacrifices that you have to make. You have to have a passion strong enough that you feel like it's worth it, because as I said, you're giving up a lot to be able to do what you do. So you need to be sure that this is something you really want to do deep down in your heart. And unfortunately, it is a sacrifice right now, but it doesn't have to be, Peter. I think in the future, as business leaders look at things other than just quarterly profits, and even that, I don't think it's an issue. Just being open to creating and accommodating people of different background and different needs to be part of a team, whether it's a leadership team or a design team. That diversity and inclusion will give you a much stronger, better product, service, or company at the end of the day. So I think it's worth making some accommodations to create that environment that invites everyone, invites women, invites people of different race and background. And I think business leaders will get to a point that they will understand that and they will embrace that. And this whole notion of putting people in boxes eventually will go away. That would be my ideal world, where we don't have to put people in any box. That a woman or a man or a African American or a gay or well, I don't know why we create so many labels. We're just humans.
I mean, I love the way you run the organization. Did you have any mentors or anybody role models that you looked up to, Anousheh, that really shaped your life here?
Not people that I worked with. As a kid, my idol was Albert Einstein. I read about how he came up with the theory of relativity. And to me, that was mind boggling. How could someone sit in a, small office, patent office, and imagine how the universe functions and imagine it so differently than what was believed to be the way the world works? And the fact that you can have such strong imagination and be able to just see things like that in your mind and then try to prove it, to me was that's what I wanted to do. I want to go beyond what's in front of my eyes to be able to see and imagine things and then go prove them or go build them. And that was my fascination, and why I so strongly believe in this magical gift we have, which is the gift of imagination. But in terms of a mentor, as I said, the way I sort of try to shape my leadership style is around what I liked from other leaders around me and what I disliked, and build on that. Very human centric type of a approach, not textbook approach.
Let's turn to XPrize. We've launched $300 million in prizes. You really have done an extraordinary job in building the structure for growth going forward. Um, give everybody a quick overview of like, what does the XPrize do at its fundamental? If they haven't heard about the XPrize, how would you describe it?
So I describe it through actually why I was drawn to it. So XPrize launches massive competitions to really focus the world's attention on a problem that has been left unsolved and it's important to humanity, and then incentivizes the best minds from all over the globe to focus on solving it. And the way we incentivize them to really break down with very clear objectives how you would solve this. So demonstrate these three things. Go to 100 kilometers, do it twice within 2 weeks, the way you described it. So very clear objectives that people can get wrap their mind around. Okay, I need to build this that does A, B, and C. And this way they are excited, and they come together and form teams to build what we want, because we only award the winners once they build and demonstrate that they've accomplished what we ask them to accomplish. So it's very different than some of the awards and prizes that award either ideas or past work. This is very future forward looking. And at the core, the thing that really draws me to XPrize is the fact that our mission is to build a hopeful, abundant future for everyone. And the world needs that, and that's what we try to do with accelerating innovation and breakthroughs and solving the world's problem. We are driving the world toward this vision of an abundant and hopeful future for everyone.
Do you think that X Prize uh, sets big enough challenges? Do you, how do you think about this? Because I'm always saying, is that going to happen anyway, or is this going to be a big enough prize? And should we be going more into the area of crazy, so to speak? Where do we balance between an incremental prize and a prize that's so crazy that it will never get won? I mean, these are the things I think about. And then you have to run an organization. I have the luxury of being chairman and throwing ideas over the transom to you.
So it's a really good question, and a question that we ask ourselves, as you ask yourself, and as a team, leadership team, we ask ourselves too. And in the past, we've been very opportunistic to find that intersection of an idea that there's enough interest from a sponsor to actually help us launch it, because we can come up with a lot of crazy ideas and people will tell us you're crazy, and we won't be able to get it off the ground. So we have to have a different approach, which we're working on, which is the next phase of XPrize. But today, the way I think when I look at the world, there's so many immediate problems that we can't just focus on crazies without understanding that people have shorter term needs. And again, short term for XPrize is not next year or the year after. It's like a 5-year horizon, 5 to 10 year horizon is short term for us. And our long term is always looking at, 20, 25 years, 30 years into the future. So I think we need to balance both, and we need to have a good mix of very challenging prizes where we probably won't have to set a time limit that you have to win by this time. And that will basically allow teams to work on their own over a long period of time and eventually get there. And then there are some immediate issues around climate, energy, biodiversity, health that requires still big risks and big steps, and no one else is doing. And XPrize can accelerate those breakthroughs. And I think that's also very important for us to do. So I think we need to have a good mix of both.
So, any favorites that of your X Prize children, like what? And I'm curious if you've like any of the X Prizes that we've launched that you've said, man, that just isn't going to happen, or or any ones that you're like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I love all of our XPrizes, but I'm a techie, I'm a geek. So I definitely love our avatar competition. And it's a favorite of mine.
So tell people what you have to do to win this Avatar, this All Nippon Airways ANA Avatar X
Yes.
Prize.
The part that I love is that the actual price initially was like they were thinking of, is it possible to build a transportation like the one you see on Star Trek?
Yeah,
I'm
quantum
like,
teleportation.
quantum teleportation, yeah, that's what I really wanted to, but we had to see what can be done in the span of 10 to 15 years. And so it ended up being an avatar competition where you're not dematerializing yourself, but you are transferring your senses, your actions, your all of your emotions through an avatar to a remote location, and it would feel as if you're there and taking those steps and actions and feeling like you're there actually. So it was a bringing a lot of different technologies together and integrating them and advancing them in a way that will give that sense of being in a different location without physically dislocating yourself. So it's haptics, AR, VR, AI, robotics, vision systems, all of it coming together and building an avatar. And then you will have a suit that you wear and put on your goggles and the suit and the gloves or whatever. And then you would feel like wherever your avatar is, you would feel it's there, and you would be able to pick things up and sense things and move around like you were physically there.
Nice. You and I were in Israel for the attempted landing of the Israeli Google Lunar XPrize team. So this was an interesting one, right? We had gotten Google to put up $30 million for the first team who could land on the moon, send back photos, videos, rove, and send back more photos and videos. And the competition ran out of time.
Yeah. That was one of our audacious competitions, to ask a team to actually build a system and launch it and land on the moon. That was a tall order. But many teams attempted. I mean, I was really encouraged by the number of teams from different countries who actually built hardware, and they were trying to negotiate catching a ride on someone's rocket to get to the moon. But we were in Israel, and one of our teams, Space.il, who continued their work even past the expiration of the competition, announced that they're going to make an attempt. And the part I loved, that when they launched, they actually had a little card that they were going to use to show that they've launched and how close they get to the moon. And they had the XPrize on it because the team, I remember the team members were young kids when we had Ansari XPrize, and they were inspired, and their interest in space was picked because of that prize. And then they became a team competing in our Google Lunar XPrize. So we had, shaped their lives and their
they sent us a photograph of a selfie taken by the spacecraft in its translunar injection. And so the moon is behind the spacecraft, and the photo shows the XPrize logo in the foreground with the moon. That was amazing. I love that.
That was amazing.
That was amazing.
And just being there and hearing their stories and the excitement they had created in their community, the kids that were looking at them like they were heroes, because we always call our teams our heroes, but now they were the heroes of the nation. They were a small team of young entrepreneurs landing a lunar lander, and they almost made it there. They were like this close.
They did land. It just
yes.
With a high velocity impact.
Yes.
Yeah, we're in Israel at Mission Control, and it's just crowded. You and I are in Mission Control, along with we had the president of the country was there, and the head of their space program was there, and they're in orbit around the moon, which was a big accomplishment in itself, getting into lunar orbit. And they hit the engines to brake, and they're coming down, and nothing hardware. It's a software glitch. Damn software. And they unfortunately didn't do a soft landing. So close. And I think they're funded to go again.
They're funded to go again. And the best part was many of the teams who didn't even go that far, they all have received contracts from different space agencies, because they all had a lot of innovation. So that's what we do at XPrize, even our failures are big successes, because we advance technology. We create innovative approaches to things that have not changed for decades. So that's the beauty of XPrize competitions.
Hey everybody, this is Peter. A quick break from the episode. I'm a firm believer that science and technology and how entrepreneurs can change the world is the only real news out there worth consuming. I don't watch the crisis news network I call CNN or Fox and hear every devastating piece of news on the planet. I spend my time training my neural net the way I see the world by looking at the incredible breakthroughs in science and technology, how entrepreneurs are solving the world's grand challenges, what the breakthroughs are in longevity, how exponential technologies are transforming our world. So twice a week, I put out a blog. One blog is looking at the future of longevity, age reversal, biotech, increasing your health span. The other blog looks at exponential technologies, AI, 3D printing, synthetic biology, AR, VR, blockchain. These technologies are transforming what you as an entrepreneur can do. If this is the kind of news you want to learn about and shape your neural nets with, go to Diamandis.com/blog and learn more. Now back to the episode. How would you define a moonshot mindset, Anousheh? If you were to say that some of the most successful people, entrepreneurs on the planet, have a moonshot mindset, what is that? What does it take to have a moonshot mindset?
I think you have to start with a clean sheet of paper and then start from the end point, the destination, and push yourself to think about, well, what do I want to see? What is it that I want to build? If I had no limitation, whether it's money, resources, engineering, technology, nothing. If the world was perfect and I could snap my finger and create something, what would that thing look like? And once you have that vision, then you can step back and figure out how to get there and how to build it. Because a lot of people start with something that's there and how they can improve it. And you will never end up in a moonshot if you're starting by trying to improve something. But if you look at a problem or something that's just you want to build and start with the end in mind and envision it without any limitation, I think it will ultimately end up in a moonshot thinking. It's a practice. I think I love sometimes when you get there through conversation, because if you get just two or three crazy people around and you start throwing ideas there, and then someone say, what if this and what if that? So another thing about moonshot is I don't think you sit there in a room by yourself and create your moonshot. You come up with an idea. In order to make it into moonshot, you need to bounce it by a few crazy people around you.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's in conversation. I would say sometimes it could be in conversation with the author of a book, right? So reading a book and hearing ideas and having that rattle in your brain. So for me, the original Ansari XPrize came out of a reading of The Spirit of St. Louis that Greg Marinette gave me, and then calling a few people like Byron Lichtenberg and Jim Burke and Greg, and then asking them what they thought of the idea. And when they told me it was a crazy idea, I said, "Good." It's like, and I think that's an interesting point, right? Because if you go with your moonshot idea and you bounce it off of people and they tell you it's a crazy idea, it'll never work, how do you deal with that?
I think you're asking the wrong person, because I was always told anything I wanted to do, I was told, nice, but you can't do that. I said I want to go to space and nobody believed me. So I don't pay attention, whether it's moonshots or other things. I live my life without caring what other people think. It just has to sit right and be right with me inside my heart, something I want to do. And then, I say, well, even if it's crazy, I'll try it. And I will never have regrets because I know I tried it and then I failed at it. But if I never try it, one, I don't know if I will make it. And two, I will always wonder, what if I did it?
Let me ask you, why would you say moonshots matter? Uh, you know, are we taking enough? Are entrepreneurs taking enough moonshots? Are countries, are philanthropists taking enough moonshots? And why do they matter?
I don't think we are taking enough moonshots, and it matters because that's how we make fundamental change in society. And if we learn one thing with the pandemic is change happens. Nobody's safe. You can't live
Whether
in
you like it or
safety,
not. Yeah.
whether you like it or not. So to me, when you take the chance, when you do something, at least you control, or not control, but you at least predict the change a little bit, and you decided to take the chance, so you feel at least some agency in the change that's happening to your life because you chose to go in that direction, take that path. So big changes in society happens through moonshots. I think nothing that has really transformed societies in a positive way was done with just incremental thinking. So moonshot definitely matters, and I think it's a shame I don't see people with means taking moonshots. It's usually people who don't have much to lose, so they take bigger chances. And to me, it's good, and it's always you need to have that. But if you mix that with people who have lots of capital to invest in something where a 1% of that capital can really help drive moonshots. It's a shame that they can't take even
You're
that
hitting on a
decision.
pet peeve. I mean, there's so many individuals who've got 50 or $100 billion more. Like, what are you going to do with that money? Have you not
Yeah,
figured out you can't take it with you? And if you leave it to your
yeah,
kids, you're going to destroy their lives. So
yeah,
what are you going to do with it? And
yeah.
uh, you know, it really does drive me nuts. There's a few people, Elon's been taking big bets, despite, let's put Twitter aside for the moment. Um, and Mark Benioff has done an incredible job. Eric Schmidt's done, but there's a lot of just money sitting on the sidelines, just accumulating. Why do you think that is? Why are the world's billionaires really being quite conservative and quiet? Is there like something happen when you get three commas?
I think it's the scarcity mindset that Peter you talk about, because they're always thinking that I may lose it. So if you're thinking that I may lose it, that you continuously trying to protect it, and nothing is enough because you could lose it. And guess what? Things happen in the world that you may lose it anyway. So why don't you spend at least a fraction of it?
Yeah, so if you're
In,
if you're a few billionaires listening to this conversation, take just one of your billion and launch 10 $100 million X prizes. And I guarantee you, we will do really a lot of great work with the capital you put forward.
Yeah,
I'm
and we
Yeah.
do. I mean, we have 26 years of experience to show how we bring 10 to 30 times the money invested in a prize in terms of investment in ideas and innovation in that field. So, to me, if you want to have an impact in the world, if you want to leave a legacy, what better leverage for your philanthropic dollar
And
than
it's
a 10 to
fun.
30 times? And it's fun. It's
Yeah.
definitely
I
fun.
mean, you had fun as the benefactrix of the Ansari X Prize, yes?
I loved every moment of it. I loved the board meetings. Loved the visioneering session. I absolutely loved the visioneering events. And it was not a chore to go to any of these meetings. It was like I couldn't wait until the next one next year.
I mean, my theory about why billionaires don't fund this, you don't have to be a billionaire. If you're a centimillionaire and you want to put up a $10 million prize that's aligned with our vision, happy to have the conversation. But I think there are two things I think about. One is and I've told this to Steve Forbes and Kip Forbes and the Forbes family. I think that the Forbes list gamifies wealth retention. And so I don't want to drop from number 13 to number 43 by giving away a few $1 billion. And we need a countervailing force here. We need the equivalent of the the Forbes contribution list that has them raise up the ranking there. So that's one reason. The other reason I think is that when you get to that point of wealth, um, uh, you like directing where the money goes. I think you like saying, no, let's use that design for a rocket ship, and I'm going to invest in this individual versus letting the crowd compete against each other. Any other reasons why?
Even that, I mean, for me, was that last point. It was the opposite, because I was an entrepreneur and I always looked at putting money in building things that I directed. But then I also was fully aware that I would go hire a team, tell them the designs, what we wanted to build, and wait 3 or 4 years or longer. And usually it would cost more, and I would not end up with what I wanted exactly. But the big appeal of the competition to me was that I will put my design out there of what we want the teams to build, and I don't pay anything until they actually build it and show that it works. I mean, as an entrepreneur, what better way to innovate, to build something you want to build is ask everyone, crowdsource it to the entire world and ask them to build it for you without paying them. And then someone else pays them to build it for you, and you only pay up to the winning team, to the best design. That to me, like, it's a no brainer. And if you want to have an impact in the world, just creating that many different innovation and companies out there, that's the best legacy you can leave. I tell you, I went to space, so people know I'm an astronaut, so usually that's an attraction. But when I go speak at universities, the students who come up to me, many of them were maybe in high school or even younger during Ansari XPrize, and they were inspired by that idea, and they ended up going to aerospace engineering or taking, a field of interest in space, because before that they never heard of space in any exciting way. They never thought that there will be a path for them. And all of a sudden, we created the opportunity, and they're like, oh, I can be part of this whole new marketplace, a whole new set of jobs that are opening up. And I don't need to just think about working for NASA, which would be a limited opportunity. So it really has driven a lot of people in a field that they wouldn't go study in, and they're excited, and they come to me and thank me for sponsoring it, and I get that more than, oh, you're an astronaut. So what better legacy?
I want to thank you too, Anousheh. I mean, I would have been up the proverbial creek without a paddle had you guys not stepped up. I mean, I remember before we announced you as a sponsor, I would have teams calling me up, all through the week saying, "Do you have the money yet? I'm building our spaceships. Do you have the 10 million?" I said, "No, I don't, but trust me, I'll find it. Someone out there has to be intelligent enough to do this." So was it worth it? Was it worth putting up the money for the prize?
Oh my God, every penny and more. I'm so happy we were the lucky ones to be the sponsors of this prize. I look out there now, and this whole industry that has been built around space. I truly believe, and I know there has been even scientific papers written that trace it back to that, that pivotal moment of the competition, and making it this paradigm shift in people's mind, changing mindset, that it is possible, that yes, entrepreneurs can build spaceship and go to space. And I think that was the pivotal moment, just like, your inspiration, the spirit of St. Louis, there was that pivotal moment for aviation. XPrize was the pivotal moment for this whole new age of space and commercial space exploration. I mean, people are having conferences, space investment conferences. Nobody would invest a penny when we launched the competition in
The
space.
old adage was the best way to become a millionaire in space was to start as a billionaire, and it was so true. It was like, the only way you can go raise money from somebody is if they had not invested in space before, because they would have lost it all. Um, so at the end of this podcast, I ask every guest a question, which is the following, and I'm going to ask you because I think it's beautifully self-referential. If I could snap my fingers and fund and launch any X Prize you want, what would be a grand challenge, a problem that you would want solved? Do you have a passion or a favorite X Prize out there?
I have several. It's such a hard
Okay, all right.
question.
Well, I will accept more than one entry.
Okay. So one is definitely space related, and it's a very futuristic. It's one of those crazy ones.
Okay, yeah, I love it.
Space is big, and I want to travel fast and go far. So I want a different type of engine. I want a warp engine or something close to it that allows us to travel much faster and go further. That's
So you
one.
want faster than light speed, or do you want
No,
approaching light speed?
I'm happy with the fraction of light speed,
So
but
you're
at
open
least
to
faster.
you're open to sublight,
Yes.
but something else, like, where do you want to get by when? Like, do you
I've
want a couple of day travel to Mars? Do you want to go?
Yeah, yeah.
That would
I
that would be a
think
good speed for you.
that would be good speed for me.
Okay,
Yes,
so and
yes.
then
And
sorry drive.
a weekend on Mars would be great. But other than that, the other two things, and one, I don't know if there is an X Prize in it, but it's something I love to do. One that I know if there's an X Prize, I want to find a solution for abundant sustainable, clean, almost free energy. Because I think if we have access to that, so many problems and everything can be solved. So that's one. And my last one,
Let's double click on that one.
okay,
So, almost free, abundant, sustainable, clean energy. Um, and but we're talking about going beyond solar and wind. Yes.
yes.
So, in other words, it's easy, and it's sort of can be go anywhere. So, this sounds like conversations you and I have had with a few individuals out there in the cold fusion, zero point energy. Is that an area of passion?
Yeah, if it's cold fusion and it can be done, yes. If not, is there another way? But I think, whether it's food, water, circular economy, anything.
Yeah, energy tips everything, right? So if you have abundant energy, you have abundant clean water, you can desalinate anything, pull water out of the atmosphere, and then half the disease burden of planet Earth is due to unclean drinking water. So energy tips water and medicine, health, and so forth.
Everything,
Yeah.
everything. And the last thing is, I have a deep passion for empowering young people, and I want to find a really strong way to give young people a voice, especially in the geopolitical situation that we live in, because I think their voice will bring sanity and balance in the world versus leaving it to power hungry politicians that live all over the globe now.
I love that, and I agree. There's a level of purity and hope uh, that comes with those voices. What age group, if you were going to empower them, uh, what age group would you focus in on?
I would focus on probably 15, 16 to 25.
I've often thought I've had conversations when I was in Dubai, other parts in the world. I've often thought that having a competition to send the youngest people into space would literally put them on a pedestal to be able to speak to the passions of making the world a better place. So it's how do you elevate them, but how does their voices get heard uh, around the world?
Because they're so smart and they have access to so much information. They're much more capable than when I was their age, and they can do so much, but they're not taken seriously. They're not invited and involved in a lot of decision making because we think they're kids, and they're much more on than we believe they are, and we need to empower them and give them an opportunity to make their voices heard and acted on, not just hear their voices, because we can also put them, behind podiums and they can talk and then we walk away and do whatever we were doing before. But really empowering them in having a voice that will be actioned.
We talk about in XPrize our global visioneering mechanism of sourcing from the experts out there which X prizes we should go out after. I wonder if we should have a category of it where we ask 15 to 25-year-olds what they think we should be going after, independently of the traditional, experts, which sounds like a four-letter word to me sometimes. Uh,
Absolutely. We're bringing a lot of interns into our conversations and hope to build a strong youth program and continue to build it up. But I remember at Visionaries, when our benefactors would bring their young,
the kids, yeah,
kids, they loved it. They,
yeah,
they had a blast.
yeah. Well, Anousheh Ansari, Dr. Anousheh Ansari, we have a few honorary degrees that have come your way. Allow me to say from my heart of hearts, thank you for being in my life. Thank you for stepping up and underwriting the Ansari X Prize. Equally important, thank you for coming back to the mothership and leading us and being my partner in in creating change in the world. To go back to your patch design. Um,
Thank you, Peter. You have been a great influence in my life. You have a very strong gravitational field, and you've changed the trajectory of my life for good. And I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anousheh. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you too.